On January 16th, Mark Carney stood beside Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing and announced a trade deal that would shake Canadian politics to its core. Canada would allow 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the market annually at a dramatically reduced tariff rate of just 6.1%, down from 100%. In exchange, China would lower tariffs on Canadian canola, lobster, crab, and peas. Carney called it an opportunity for Ontario and the auto sector. Doug Ford called it something very different. Terrible. Just hours after the deal was announced, Ford issued a scathing statement. He said the federal government was inviting a flood of cheap made-in-China electric vehicles without any real guarantee of investments in Canada's economy, auto sector, or supply chain. Worse, by lowering tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, this lopsided deal risks closing the door on Canadian automakers to the American market, our largest export destination, which would hurt our economy and lead to job losses. Ford wasn't speaking in a vacuum. Ontario's auto sector employs over 90,000 workers, with over 1.3 million vehicles built in 2024. The province had already been battered by Trump's trade war, with assembly lines at risk are already gone in Brampton, Oshawa, and Ingersoll. 5 days later, on January 21st, Ford went nuclear. Standing alongside leaders from the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, and Unifor Union, he issued a direct call to action. Boycott the Chinese EV vehicles. Support companies that are building vehicles here. It's as simple as that. He urged Canadians to think about their neighbors working in the auto sector before buying a cheaper Chinese car. He called it a Team Canada approach, insisting that Canadians had to stick together. But the irony was obvious. Ford was calling for Canadian unity while publicly feuding with the Canadian Prime Minister. What made Ford's fury even more intense was how he learned about the deal. According to the Premier, Carney did not speak to him about it in advance. Ford said he found out about the China EV agreement just hours before it was made public, with no consultation, no heads up, no communication at all. For a deal that would directly impact Ontario's largest manufacturing sector, this was a stunning diplomatic failure. On January 19th, Ford told reporters he was ticked off at Carney, and the two had not spoken since the deal was announced. I thought we had a good enough relationship that he'd give me a quick text or a little bit of communication, Ford said. The contrast with Saskatchewan was stark and politically damaging. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe had flown to China with Carney to advocate for his province's canola farmers. He got tariff relief for his key export. He got a seat at the table. Meanwhile, Ford was sitting at home, and Ontario got what he described as a massive threat of Chinese vehicles coming here that are going to hurt every single auto sector worker. The Ontario NDP jumped on this, with leader Marit Stiles, calling it a crushing blow to the auto sector. She accused Ford of doing nothing, then complaining to grab headlines. "If you're not at the table, you're not fit for Premier," Stiles said. But Ford fired back that he had repeatedly warned Carney against cutting tariffs on Chinese EVs. He said he was 100% dead against rolling back EV tariffs before the China trip even happened. Auto sector leaders backed Ford's concerns. Flavio Volpi, from the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association, said the 100% tariffs were meant to give Canada's EV investments a chance to succeed before Chinese vehicles poured in. This deal undermined that strategy at the worst possible time, when the sector was already under unprecedented pressure from Trump's threats. 50,000 cars is about a shift at an auto plant, Volpi said. That's 1,000 workers, might be 5,000 supplier workers. Then came Monday, January 26th. 10 days after the China deal exploded into public controversy, Ford and Carney met for the first time. The location was perfect for the optics they needed. Pizza Nova, a beloved Ontario franchise in Etobicoke. The two men smiled broadly for cameras, ordered pizza, and chatted with local kids enjoying a snow day. It was political theater at its finest, carefully choreographed to send a message. "We're all about Team Canada," Ford told reporters. Carney immediately echoed him. "All about Team Canada, all aligned." Then Carney added with a grin, "I found it twice as productive as the Premier. It was a joke, but also a subtle jab. We got stuff done." When reporters asked if they had made up, Ford dismissed the premise entirely. "Listen, guys, we're a big family, and sometimes brothers and sisters may disagree, but at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, we are one country, Team Canada. Both of us." Are there differences? Sure, there is. But I can tell you one thing. We agree on 99% of this stuff. It was a masterclass in political damage control. Ford was walking back his boycott rhetoric and terrible deal language without actually admitting he had overreacted. Carney was accepting the reconciliation without apologizing for the lack of consultation. Both men knew they needed this photo op. The pizza wasn't just about pizza, it was about projecting unity at a moment when Canada desperately needed it. Donald Trump was threatening tariffs, decertifying aircraft, and generally treating Canada like a subordinate. The Alberta separatist movement was meeting with Trump administration officials. The Parti Québécois was leading in polls and promising a referendum. Internal Canadian divisions were becoming dangerous liabilities. Ford and Carney needed to show that Team Canada wasn't just a slogan, it was a real partnership, even when they disagreed. So they ordered pizza, smiled for the cameras, and moved forward. The Pizza Nova photo op lasted just a few minutes, but before the cameras arrived, Ford and Carney had a serious 45-minute meeting. According to Carney, they covered around 5 big topics. We worked up an appetite, he said. Ford confirmed they discussed energy, critical minerals, the Ring of Fire, the auto sector, and moving stuff faster. That last point was crucial. Both men agreed that Canada needed to accelerate approvals, get shovels in the ground, and stop letting bureaucracy slow down major projects. It was a rare point of genuine agreement. Energy was a massive topic. Ontario and Canada need to dramatically expand electricity generation to support new manufacturing, data centers, and the electrification of everything. Critical minerals are essential for batteries, semiconductors, and defense applications. The Ring of Fire, a mineral-rich region in northern Ontario, has been stuck in regulatory limbo for years, despite containing billions of dollars worth of chromite and other resources. Both Ford and Carney know these projects are vital for economic security, especially as the United States becomes less reliable as a partner. The auto sector discussion was undoubtedly the most sensitive. Ford had spent the previous week trashing Carney's China EV deal. Now they had to find common ground. Carney's position was that Chinese companies had expressed interest in building affordable EVs in Canada, creating jobs and investment. Ford's position was that Chinese factories would just assemble vehicles using Chinese parts, providing minimal economic benefit, while undercutting existing manufacturers. The compromise seemed to be that Canada would develop a new automotive strategy, expected to be unveiled in February, that would give better market access to companies that actually build vehicles in Canada with Canadian content and Canadian workers. Ford also got Carney to commit to meeting again in just 2 days at the upcoming First Minister's meeting. That gathering would bring together premiers from all provinces and territories to discuss the broader response to American threats. "We're going to see each other in 2 days," Carney said. The implication was clear. This wasn't a one-time reconciliation. This was the beginning of sustained cooperation. The reason Ford and Carney buried the hatchet so quickly becomes obvious when you zoom out and look at the threats facing Canada. Donald Trump is waging economic warfare against America's closest ally and neighbor. He's threatened 100% tariffs on all Canadian goods over the China trade deal. He's threatened 50% tariffs on Canadian aircraft. He's called Mark Carney Governor Carney as an insult. He's suggested Canada should become the 51st state. His Treasury Secretary met with Alberta separatist groups seeking independence. His officials are actively trying to destabilize and dismember Canada. In this environment, public feuds between the Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier are a luxury Canada cannot afford. Ford and Carney both understand this. When Ford talks about Team Canada, he's not just using a catchphrase. He's acknowledging that internal divisions weaken Canada's negotiating position with the United States and embolden those who want to see Canada broken apart or absorbed. Every time Ford and Carney fight publicly, Trump wins. Every time they show unity, even manufactured unity over pizza, Canada's position strengthens. The First Minister's meeting scheduled for January 29th would be crucial. All provinces and territories needed to align on how to respond to Trump's escalating threats. That required Ford and Carney to be on the same page, or at least appear to be. The Pizza Summit wasn't really about resolving their substantive disagreements over Chinese EVs or auto sector policy. It was about showing Canadians, Americans, and the world that Canada's leaders could work together when it mattered. Ford got what he needed from the meeting. He got Carney's commitment to focus on the auto sector, to develop a new strategy, and to keep Ontario at the table for major decisions. Carney got what he needed too. He got Ford to back off the boycott rhetoric and terrible deal language, and he got a powerful premier publicly supporting Team Canada unity. Both men compromised, both men won. And most importantly, both men recognized that their real opponent wasn't each other. It was Donald Trump and the existential threats he poses to Canadian sovereignty and prosperity. The pizza was just the symbol. The substance was survival,